happy Thirsty Thursday. Today we're drinking sangria and talking about commonly used homebrewing chemicals. So first up we have, do you know how to say this?
No, because I legitimately, I'm going to totally tell on myself, but I sat down here and I was like, yeah. What?
Carrageenan. Carrageenan tablet.
Carrageenan tablet.
And this improves
flocculation.
Improves flocculation and beer clarity. We're going to add 1 tablet per 5 barrels within the last 10 to 15 minutes of the boil. And these are the really big tablets.
You know what they look like? Like if you've ever had a swimming pool and you're doing like the big tablets of chlorine,
yeah.
It looks like that.
It does look like that. We have all these chemicals in varying sizes, but I picked this one just to show that we do have like large sizes.
Well, and you get 5 tablets in this big huge bag. Sodium metabisulfite.
What's that used for?
To kill wild yeast.
So when would you use this in a brew?
Add a 1/4 teaspoon per 6 gallons of must. So that's going to be prior to your fermentation. You're going to want to kill the wild yeast with this, and then you're going to need to wait at least 24 hours before pitching your yeast, because it is not real picky about what yeast it kills. And it can't be like, you're wild, you're not, so you're okay. There is no safe yeast.
So you'll ruin your fermentation.
Yeah, well, it just won't ferment at all. It won't have any yeast. So that's what
it also says that it reduced oxidation. So that
it can be used to help as a preservative. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sodium metabisulfite can also be used as a sanitizer as well because it kills that wild yeast. So.
Yeah. It's I think this is probably one of the most flexible chemicals we have, multiple uses.
Calcium chloride. And this says you add up to 1 teaspoon per 5 gallons of calcium chloride. This is used to correct mineral deficiencies in water. So you hear about, your water includes all these different minerals. If for whatever reason it didn't have enough calcium chloride in it, look, we got it right here.
During Big Brew Day, Zach, who was running the class, uses RO water. It's really, and that's water. Water in its most...
It strips all of the chemicals out of it.
And so he tests his water, and he was putting back in the chemicals that he wanted, and one of them was a calcium chloride. So he spoke about the fact that, certain amounts of these different chemicals will bring out different flavors in your beer, or could mask them or change them.
Well, it really does change the flavor because, this, I grew up in a town called Roundup, Montana, and one of the things that we're known for is having horrible, horrible water there. And if you drink water that comes out of a faucet there, it's going to be RO water because otherwise it's brown and disgusting.
Ooh. Okay.
So this makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Putting the chemicals back in.
Yes, put them back in.
We have Pectic Enzyme. So Pectic Enzyme, you're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon per gallon of juice or 1/10 teaspoon of fruit 1 hour before the start of fermentation. And Pectic Enzyme breaks down pulp and aids in extraction of tannin.
Which tannin, as you know, is important for the taste profile of your wine. As I always talk about my favorite recipe book, it's in that recipe over and over and over and over again, no matter what kind of fruit you're using.
So next up, we're going to talk about Amylase Enzyme. So this is one of the ones that comes in not a packet, it's like a little container. And it says that you're going to use 0.1 to 0.3 teaspoons per gallon to convert starches into fermentable sugars. So basically this just increases the fermentability of whatever you're brewing. So next up we have Malic Acid. Malic Acid is kind of going to be one of those ones that you add according to the recipe, but basically it adjusts the acidity of fruits that you're going to be putting into your brewing.
We have gypsum. Ironically, I'm going to say Zach talked about this as well, and he talked about this in regard to his water. So he was messing around with that calcium chloride, and then he was talking about gypsum, and it didn't take a lot of all of these chemicals to put those minerals back into the water and make it perfect, but gypsum was one of them, and this says 2 teaspoons per 5 gallons needs to be added. And you said it increases the hardness of water?
This is the hardness of water, and I think that that's really funny because when I was growing up, we lived out of town, so we lived out of the brown water
I'm
zone.
gonna guess there's like an in-town, out-of-town
Yeah,
kind of
so
thing
we
going
had
on.
our well water, and actually our water was really, really soft. So we would want to add gypsum if we were trying to make our water a little less soft. We had one of those tubs that had the jets in it. It would bubble, and we were like, we're not adding soap or anything to it. How is it doing this? And it's because our water was so soft.
So you probably needed to add this so you could even get shampoo out of your hair.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Which is not why we're adding it in brewing, but you know, just a side note.
If you have shampoo in your hair and you need to get it out, add gypsum.
I'm here for you. All right, what else do we have besides sangria, which is really good? You should go get some.
If you haven't seen our sangria making video that came out last week, you should go watch it and make some sangria for yourself. All right, so next up we have Kisasol. Kisasol is used in winemaking quite a bit, and once again I brought out the big bottle to show you.
You sure did.
So Kisasol is a clarifying agent, and essentially what that means, it's going to make your wine or beer or whatever you're making just a lot more clear. And it does that by removing excess tannin, dead yeast cells, and floccular precipitate. So
Say that 3 times fast.
Floccular precipitate, floccular precipitate, floccular precipitate. Oh,
Very
wow!
nice.
I did not.
You have not had enough sangria.
I haven't.
So is Kisasol used in tandem with something else?
So Kisasol is generally used in tandem with this guy, chitosan.
That's right.
And people say chitosan a lot of different ways. I've heard
chitosan.
it. Chitosan, like I've heard it, but I say chitosan.
If you come in and you ask for it, we're gonna know what you're talking about.
It's also used to clarify wine in conjunction with Kisasol. It says that right there on the package.
And this is also used for beer, it says.
Yeah.
Now, if you buy a kit made by either RJS or Wine Expert or any of those big guys, they do like the whole thing. And a lot of times it's isinglass. But if you would have this combination, it's going to be half of one package and half of another because they do need to be used in tandem.
Now, something interesting when I first started working here and I learned about chitosan, it does contain shellfish and sulfite. So if you
have an allergy,
if you're allergic to shellfish, you
don't use this one.
You could have a problem with wine.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Depending on how it was clarified.
Yeah. Which I was like, what? Because I would never think that. I mean, I don't, but...
Like, who was walking along and they were like, I have some wine and it's kind of cloudy, so I think I'll throw these fish parts in there. Like, who does that?
I know. That's what I think about all the time with, like, everything, though. Potassium sorbate is our next chemical. This prevents living yeast from multiplying. So it doesn't exactly... It's not like sodium metabisulfite where it kills the yeast. No. But it prevents them from going any further.
Fermentation in line where it needs to be.
Stabilizer is essentially what it is.
It's gonna stop. It's gonna stop that fermentation. So you know when you've gotten to the alcohol by volume you want, your ABV, and you need to make sure that there's not like some kind of stray yeast hiding out in the corner, waiting for you to bottle it so it can start again and pop your cork.
That's when you add potassium sorbate. It says that you add a half teaspoon per gallon to prevent renewed fermentation when sweetening. So if you're like back sweetening or something, you would...
And it's not a bad idea to use it anyway, because you just never know about yeast. Tricky little suckers. And
last but not least, this is also by no means the full extent of the chemicals that we have.
Toe dipped in the ocean.
Right. But last but not least of what we're talking about today is Sataric Acid. So this, once again, similar to Malic Acid, it just adjusts the acid levels, and you're going to use it similar to the way you would Malic Acid once again, where it kind of is just according to the recipe.
And I'm a big proponent of following the recipe when it comes to wine. I think you like sangria.
I think I like sangria as well. So yeah, if you are one of those people where you're looking to level up your brewing skills, it's really important to know about all these different chemicals and their purpose, because then, like you said, you can change the water profile, you can change the acidity levels, you can change all sorts of things, and it's really just going to make whatever brew you're trying to make, you can look and say, okay, I want it to be this way, so I need this particular thing. So, yeah.
Super important, and water does matter. You send your water out to be tested, you can get home tests, you can do it yourself, but the bottom line is figuring out what you need to put back in. And also knowing that if you're using a public water system, you may have to test it every now and then because it will change.
I hope you learned something about homebrewing chemicals today. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode of Thirsty Thursday. Cheers.